has our property and it has speculation. It already has specifications.
Do what now?
On Mayfield,
Yeah.
it's because our property and she just asked me.
Yeah.
That was my response.
Well, it's because they have exclusive vending rights associated with the donation of the property. Okay, we're ready to get started. Good morning, everybody. My name is Brian Kellenberger. I'm the Director of Beach Operations for the Walton County Tourist Development Council. Appreciate your participation in our meeting this morning. The purpose of the meeting is to go over the revisions to the beach vending section of the Waterways and Beaches Ordinance. Before we get started, a few rules. If everybody can cut their cell phones on silent, we'd appreciate. At the end of the presentation, we'll do a question and answer session, recognition by hands, and if we would respect each other's comments and opinions, I'd appreciate it. Before we get started, Jim Bagby's in the room with us. A few words from our Executive Director.
Thanks, Brian. I want to recognize Commissioner Cecilia Jones and offer her opportunity to say anything. Okay.
I didn't know it was supposed to be instant and season now. I just, I'm here to wish you a successful year. I've talked to so many of you on the phone, and I just want you to know that Walton County supports small business people. We know that small business people are the backbone of our country, and we want to encourage you to thrive, and we want to be here to support you and help you and not be overbearing. And I know sometimes it probably seems like we are, but we're trying to bring harmony to our environment along with you, and I know you are. When tourists come down here, sometimes the first people they see are you. So I appreciate you being ambassadors, and just look forward to working with you. If you have concerns, call Ron, call me. I don't mind, call my office. Some of you even have my personal cell phone number. So y'all have a great season. If I can help, I'm sure here to do that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Commissioner. And I want to echo a couple of things. It is about balance. There was a perception last year that we got a little bit out of balance. And so the board collectively took some action that they thought would bring back in balance. And so hopefully, you're never going to find a perfect balance. You're going to be over here a little bit or over there a little bit or whatever. And you're always trying to seek to find that balance and find that harmony that the Commissioner referenced. And so that's what we wanted to do, is make sure that we took a couple of minutes, Brian and the team, to explain the changes that the Commissioners enacted and make sure that we address your questions, because y'all are the ones out there on the front lines that deal every day with customers, with our visitors, with our permanent residents, and with people that are just day trippers. And so we count on you. The other thing I wanted to mention is we have a certified tourism ambassador training. It's free to you. It's free to every business in Walton County. It's through Visit Florida. If you contact us, what it is, it's about a 30-minute little self-paced computer exercise, some film clips and things that Visit Florida developed so that people understand customer service. And that's the most important thing we need to take out of this whole conversation. It's not about, we're on the beach or this on the beach or that on the beach. We are all in the customer service industry. Because if we don't keep them coming back, if they have a bad experience because somebody threatened them or somebody moved their stuff or somebody did this or did that, they won't come back. And so I encourage you to sign up. And it's open to everybody. It's every one of your people can take part in this program. Sign up and go through the training module because it will help their customer service skills. And other than that, I'll take any questions or answers during the question and answer period. I'll turn it back over to Brian. Thanks.
Appreciate it, Jim. Okay, in the package you received this morning and via email, first page is a outline of the revisions that were adopted to what's called the beach vending section of the Waterways and Beaches Ordinance. First page was the agenda. I'll talk about the changes and go over the one of the bigger changes, which was the 50% division of the public beach areas. And then Jeff McVeigh, our lead code enforcement officer, will go over the permitting process to, as everybody knows, the 2014 permits were extended to May 22nd. Some of you have gone ahead and gotten your 2015 permits. Jeff will go over how to for the ones of you who do not have it, how to get that process done and have your permits in hand. So back to the handout. Like I say, the first page is a outline of the ordinance. The next several pages are the maps of our regional beach accesses. And the last 7 pages are the section 2260 of the chapter 22 of the Waterways and Beaches Ordinance. And it has the actual verbiage changes underlined in it. So back to the outline. A little bit about this. As everybody knows, we had a request by the County Commission to come up with some solutions to some of the issues we had last year. The TDC put forth several recommendations that we had developed through a couple of workshops and through input from different people in the county. It was presented at March 10th meeting and then again at a April 14th meeting where the final language was adopted and was voted on and actually became effective May 1st because we felt the need to make sure that everybody was notified properly and give everybody the opportunity to get their 2015 permits. We set an enforcement date of May 22nd. So the changes that we talk about today, our code enforcement people will start enforcing those new revisions to the ordinance starting May 22nd. So starting with our outline, most of these changes were small verbiage changes to clarify or to make the code consistent throughout. So the first one, once again, these are all in 2013-04, which is the number of the ordinance, and then Chapter 22, Section 60. I'll just start with paragraph and subparagraph numbers. So subparagraph or paragraph B, subparagraph 1, a verbiage change to clarify the difference between a specific location permit and a delivery permit. So we added the verbiage specific place in a couple of areas in that paragraph. The second one was in section D1, where we changed the word concession to vending operation. Simple clarification so that everybody understood that we're talking about a vending operation. The next change was in paragraph D3, and it was a verbiage inserted that would make an allowance to provide for a 10-foot corridor in front of our lifeguard stations. At each one of our regional beach accesses, there's a lifeguard station. So there needs to remain a 10-foot corridor in front of this lifeguard station to the water. Lifeguards typically stake this out in the morning when they get there, but just be aware that that is a now new verbiage change to the ordinance, and it will be enforced. The next one is in section D4, verbiage change to the starting time for vendor setup, and it has changed to 7:30 a.m. or after the morning sea turtle nesting survey is completed. So the South Walton Turtle Watch, who is our turtle monitoring sponsor, has a texting program, and that was outlined in our pre-season meeting. If you do not have that information and you're not set up, please contact Haley. She has all the information and can get you the correct information to make sure you get signed up properly and you're receiving these texts. So, new start time, 7:30 a.m., or when the area has been cleared by text by the turtle monitoring program. That doesn't mean by when the person walks by and waves to you. Better have a text, because that's what we're going by. We're not going by the I saw the turtle person. The next one, paragraph D6, verbiage inserted to define that only specific place permitted vendors have the right to put a temporary box on the beach. And that was really a clarification and a getting rid of some ambiguities of who could actually set up a temporary vending box. The next one is D9, verbiage change to allow properly permitted vehicles access to the beach starting at 7:30 a.m. or after the morning sea turn has been completed. Once again, that was to make it clear with the people that are allowed to drive vehicles on the beach in accordance with the other sections of the ordinance. It changes their time to get on the beach to be equal to the same time everybody else does. Next one is in, this is the larger one, section D10. This was a new paragraph and subparagraph number created, or actually subparagraph. And this is the one that delineates or separates the public beach accesses or public beaches into a 50% vending zone. So what this does is, and we have maps behind there, and we'll go over them in just a minute. But the premise is that the regional beach, first we're going to start doing the regional beach accesses. Neighborhood beach accesses with greater than 100 linear feet of public beach associated with them will come at a later date. We had identified those areas. There was some dispute on a couple of them about proper ownership. So we're working that out, and those delineations will come at a later date. So starting May 22nd, we'll be concentrating on the regional beach accesses. The basic premise is that we separate that beach 50%, and that creates a 50% area for a vending zone. The general public has access to 100% of the beach. The beach vendors that are delivery vendors have a particular zone, and it's delineated on these plans. We have physical markers on the beach. Typically, it is the lifeguard station, and then a existing or a point or marker on the existing structure, typically the boardwalk associated with that beach access. We are contemplating putting out a small marker on the flat portion of the beach if there gets to be some confusion on where this line actually is. So before we go to the maps, let's finish up the last of the verbiage changes. Paragraph E, subparagraph 4, this was in response to some not quite clear verbiage on what is exactly expected of people to have in regards to life-saving training. So the words were added, life-saving training to replace with a CPR certification or water safety certification recognized by the American Red Cross. The local fire district, South Walton Fire District, has offered up to do these classes. They would like to do them in groups. So if you don't have the certification, then contact South Walton Fire District, Sammy Sanchez. Once again, you can contact Haley for their number, or you can look on their website, and it'll have their contact information. His contact information was also included in the previous book we handed out at our original vendors meeting. Anyway, South Walton Fire District will be offering those classes, and they will be arranging them in group format. Okay, the last one is paragraph H, subparagraph 2A, and this has to do with insurance, and it was a additional verbiage to make sure that we were getting the proper insurance certificates. And what it is, it added the requirement that Walton County be listed as certificate holder and as additionally insured. Those were added because that way there was already verbiage in there. It was just kind of long. Just by using the certificate holder, that means we get notified, or the county gets notified 30 days prior to any changes or cancellations to a policy, typical operating or business operating procedures. And then additional insured is now a standard in the industry. Most of you probably already have it anyway. So those were the changes to the ordinance adopted at the 414 meeting, made effective May 1st, and will start being enforced on May 22nd. Okay, Exhibit B is our regional beach accesses. There is one change. Regional beach access number 8, Miramar Beach, was originally included, but further investigation on it has revealed that that beach has a particular situation, as it was a donated beach, and associated with the donation of the beach, the person that donated it has exclusive vending rights on that beach. So that one's been removed from the list. I think we're all aware of that anyway. So First map is our Inlet Beach Regional Access, down in Inlet Beach, of course. It's one of our larger regional beach accesses. As you can see, the vendor section is on the east portion of the west portion of the beach at this beach access. So if you were to come down the middle access, our lifeguard tower is out there. All the beach to the west is what's called the vending zone. So that means all the delivery vendors that are allowed to deliver chairs and umbrellas and other beach-related equipment have the right to vend in that area. General public has access to the whole beach, and then, of course, the section on the east side is left as a non-vending zone so that the general public, that comes to the beach at 10 a.m. can have an opportunity to get what's considered a waterfront seat. In an email as a response to our mail out, the question came up that your verbiage says frontage. Does that mean that we can set up chairs behind the front row seats? No, that means that the vending zone is the delineated portion as shown in this map. There will be signs placed at the top of the boardwalks and at the bottom of the boardwalks that have this same description on it for this particular beach. It has a little bit of verbiage about the ordinance and explains what it is. So hopefully that will solve or help solve some of the confusion, if there is any confusion, and it will be a constant reminder of where the vending zone is. Next beach is our Santa Clara Regional Beach Access. It is in the heart of Seagrove. It's one of our handicap accessible accesses, so it has a pretty long boardwalk down to it. The way we chose which side of the beach the vending zone would be on was the side that is for vending is typically the furthest away from the end of the access. The logic behind that is that the public should probably have the shortest route to a beach than the person that's making money off the beach, if there's any question about that. So this vending zone is on the east side of that beach, and then, of course, I hope the public has the right to all of the beach. Once again, signs will be placed at the top of the boardwalk and at the bottom of the boardwalk depicting this description and giving verbiage of what it means. Our next one is Van Ness Butler Regional Beach Access. Once again, another handicap accessible access. This is the one in between Seaside and Watercolor. It's kind of a pie-shaped piece of property. Vending zone on this one is on the east side. And once again, we'll have markers on the boardwalk and on the flat portion of the beach that can be lined up on so that you can kind of gauge to where that line exists in the sand. Next one is our Blue Mountain Beach Regional Access, one of our smaller regional beach accesses. Vending zone on the east side of that public beach. Next one is our Gulfview Heights Regional Beach Access down, if you know where the Goat Feathers restaurant is in Blue Mountain Beach. Once again, vendor area is on the east side of the beach and will be delineated by physical markers on existing structures and or placed on the flat portion of the beach. Next one is our Ed Walline Regional Beach Access down at the end of Highway 393. This one changes up a little bit. Our vending zone is on the west side of the beach. And once again, delineated by a marker on the boardwalk and with our lifeguard tower that is in the flat portion of the beach. Next one is Noon Allen or Fort Panic, which is down on the western end, or western end 30A. Vendor zone is on the east side. Once again, be marked by a physical marker on the boardwalk and by our lifeguard tower signs at the top of the boardwalk and at the bottom of the boardwalk. Like I said, the Miramar Beach access down to Miramar has been omitted based on its special circumstances associated with it. Last 7 pages is the actual section of the ordinance, chapter 22, and this is section 2260. And as you look down through it, you'll see the underlined and different colored. I know this is in black and white, so it looks a little different shade of gray. But they're underlined, and you can see where the changes were inserted into the beach vending ordinance. So, with that portion of the meeting being said, do we have any questions on that portion? Yes, sir. We got a microphone. If you'll state your name,
Eric Johnson, Miramar Beach Service.
appreciate it.
2 questions. Let's see, I think it was paragraph D, line 4. It says we have to be off the beach by an hour after sunset. Will that include sitting customers? Like, do I have to tell them they have to get up? Say we were having a special function, wedding anniversary, or anything like that. Do I have to tell them an hour after sunset we're closed? That's my first question. Secondly, when I'm looking at many of these maps where you're delineating where we're going to
That's okay. We can hear.
With many of the maps I'm looking at, where I understand what you're trying to do, but many of the vendor areas are away from the handicap access, and I feel like a lot of our customers at times are handicapped people. That I'm gonna have to tell them they have to traverse the whole beach within a wheelchair in order to use one of my setup.
Test.
And I do feel like other people that would be renting chairs because they probably don't want to have to carry the extra stuff down, considering their needs.
Yes, sir.
That was my curiosity.
That's a good point. We do have handicap accessible wheelchairs available at our regional beach accesses. Some places we have them there. Sometimes you have, in other places you have to call ahead to make sure they are there available. Like I say, the original logic is that the visitor to the beach that is bringing their own equipment, and having to carry it, and that's how we came up with that. It's a good point. I wish it would have been brought up earlier where it could have been considered. I don't know if it would have changed the outcome.
I suggest possibly making handicap sitters, what would the term be, not have to follow them. If we have somebody that has a handicap placard, could they then use that placard to sit in the section of the beach that you're saying they could not?
I think,
Lifeguards have wheelchairs.
yeah, I think that would lead to abuse of the intent of the change. Yeah, like I say, we do have those available. If you have handicap customers, just call ahead to South Walton Fire District because they're in charge of the wheelchairs, the beach wheelchairs, and I think they would probably help accommodate most of your needs.
Okay.
Okay.
The hour after.
Hour after sunset. I don't know how we can enforce that. I mean,
I think what I heard was special event. If you have a special event, you have to have a special event permit. So that would cover.
I think he's referring to a typical customer that has come down and enjoyed the sunset and is still enjoying the twilight hours on the beach.
My
Or
property.
twilight is less than an hour after
Yeah.
sunset.
Well,
So, I mean, it's
yeah.
an hour after sunset, you're even past
Yeah.
EMT or whatever. And so, I mean, it's dark. If they want to sit down there in the dark, they can, but you can't. I think that was the intent.
I understand. To explain more, my particular contract is all homeowners. So these are people that live here. Many of them are retired. They do come down late, and a lot of times they will tip the guys to stay out late with them. And typically, if they're paying, we'll stay. So I'm just clarifying again. It is an hour after twilight is over. Then is an hour after sunset.
Well, sunset is not compliant. Sunset.
Okay. Any more questions on this portion? Yes, sir. Pardon me? Grayton Beach is actually considered a neighborhood beach access because we do not have any restroom facilities there. So until we sort out the rest of the neighborhood beach accesses with greater than 100 linear feet of public beach, that area will remain as it is. Now, it does fall under Section D8 where that is the section that has the upland. If you have a upland property whose southern boundary is adjacent to a public beach, then by the ordinance, you're supposed to have their written authorization to commercially vend in front of their property. Some of the people in Graden Beach have already exercised that right to prohibit, and that's when we had to shut off the portion of the beach to the west of what we call the west drive-on access. Those upland property owners had submitted a letter that said they had not given anybody authorization to do that. So until we get that sorted out, Graden Beach will remain as is.
No, it is in the mix, we just don't have it divided up.
Right.
So that's the answer to your question, because it is a public beach, and all public beaches fall under the ordinance.
Okay. Any more questions? I'm going to turn it over to Jeff McVeigh for a few trending issues we've noticed and the permit process to go from here to get 2015 permits.
Good morning. Still for a few more minutes. Junior posed a question, bonfires. The bonfires apply to your 50% margin, and unless they direct us otherwise, yeah, that's bonfires and all is on that 50% of the beach. So any activity that you provide for a fee happens on that 50%. So a couple of things. Probably the easiest thing to talk about is going to be your vending application. If you don't already have it in, I urge you to do that just because your current permit expires on the 22nd. So after the 22nd, you're vending without a permit. Understand that if we get 40 this week, we probably won't get 40 of them done by Friday evening, but we'll make a good effort to have everything out of here by the 22nd. We've had pretty good turnaround so far. The biggest issue we had with vending permits is having to track down and chase down the ones that's not here today, that's playing the game and wanting to get permission from a property owner that owns a house 3 streets in and wanting permission to vend on the beach that's not beachfront, that kind of stuff. So it takes a lot of time. If we wind up getting tangled up in that, then that just puts you on our radar. So most of you guys that are sitting here today are not one of those people. So just make sure, submit your application by the ordinance. You know what the rules are. You know how to do it. You've been doing it for however long. So just make sure all your information's in there. Letitia and the girls are good at checking that stuff in when you bring it in. When you bring it in, they'll go down the list with you to make sure you got everything. If you don't have it, they'll let you fax it in or email it in or bring it by. I mean, I even picked some stuff up from a guy running into him on the beach the other day, and he's like, hey, I got to take this to the courthouse. I'm like, I'm going in here. So we'll work with you. We just want to help you get your permits out by the 22nd. Vendor contact list and emails. I see 2 people sitting in here that says, hey, I didn't hear anything about the meeting. Make sure that Haley's got good information. She had the sign-in sheets out for the vendor meeting preseason. If she couldn't read an email address, if it's kicking back to her or whatever. So if you hadn't been getting the emails from Haley, 2 or 3, I think, probably by now already, if you hadn't get the emails, make sure that she's got a good email address on you and she'll get you on the list so you get everything. That email list includes the Sheriff's Office Beach Patrol crew, and it will also include the South Walton's lifeguard supervisor. So everything that you guys get, they all get. So it's all inclusive. Everybody sees the same information. We want everybody to see it at the same time and not to get it hearsay. So make sure we got good contact information on you. 2015 trending issues so far. Here's what we've beat our head against the sand with so far since spring break started for the most part. The biggest issue we've had so far on the permits, let's stay on permits while we're there, 1,000 foot of beach to have a kiosk. If you got 1,000 foot of beach, you can have 1 kiosk per 500 feet. If you got 300 foot of beach, you can't have a kiosk. So make sure that when you submit your permits, when we see your site plans, if we're seeing site plans on inventories and that kind of stuff, and you only got 300 foot of beach, then we can't approve the permit entirely because it violates the ordinance. So we've had several of those come through where there's a kiosk on 200 foot of beach that doesn't line up with the ordinance, so we can't approve it. So if we're kicking stuff back to you because you violate the ordinance, then the delay's on your behalf and it's not ours. We just make sure to read the portion of the ordinance that says your vending requirements, what you have to have in your permit. It's in the ordinance, it's in the the flyers that we've sent out in the other meetings. So take a few minutes to go through that checklist, make sure everything's in order. Clean the area around you. The ordinance says that you're responsible for cleaning the beach within 100 foot of where you vend at. If you have a chair and an umbrella somewhere, 100 foot around, that's your responsibility. So when we go back in the afternoon and your chairs are gone and the holes are still there from your umbrellas, but all the trash is still there, then that just puts you on the radar, okay? When we go back in the morning at 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning, shift guy comes down through there and your chairs are sitting on top of tater chip bags and beer cans and whatever. I mean, that's not the example that we want to set. We don't want y'all to set that example either. I understand it takes you another 30 or 45 seconds or a minute if you just go in and put in one set somewhere. We have less issues on the bigger beaches because they've got enough guys. Somebody's job is to clean the beach. So take a couple extra minutes. Make sure you keep your rubber bands up, and we find a lot of those rubber bands. We don't find them. Turtle Watch finds them and sends them to us and says, "Hey, help us out with this. The turtle's eating rubber band." So when you break a rubber band, just have you guys pick it up, stick it in their pocket, and take it with them when they go. Emergency access. As most of you know that's working the center section of the beach, or the eastern center section, if you will, around Seagrove and all that way, it's really narrow. The waves, I've seen as recently as last week, the waves coming to the boardwalks. We still have to maintain emergency access through there, even if it means you don't sit up there. We've got to have room to get back and forth through there. Now, we're going to chastise you and fuss at you a little bit and write you a warning or a ticket or whatever, but when the sheriff's office can't get through there to get to a water rescue, or the South Walton Fire can't get to a water rescue or a medical issue, and they're having to get off and hand jack umbrellas and chairs out of the way while you're going to lunch or whatever, then that's a problem. So make sure you leave an emergency access wherever you are. We like the top 12 or 15 feet. There's not a number on it, but as long as we can drive back and forth behind you, we prefer to drive there because it's easier to get back and forth through there and you have to dodge less people. So help us out with that. Proof of your permits. If you got a bonfire going on, the trend is we're starting to chase a lot more permits. So we check a bonfire and nobody there has the permit. The guy comes set my fire up and he'll be back at 10 o'clock to clean it up, but there's no permit there. Print your permit, stick it on the corner of the table, and we try not to fool your customers. We just go to the table, and 90% of the time it's sticking on the corner of the table. We read the permit and get in the truck and never even have to speak to anybody. Now, a lot of times they'll ask us, "Hey, how you doing? Can we help you?" or whatever. But just stick your permit there. That way we don't have to fool your customers, and we don't have to spend 10 or 15 minutes calling dispatch and all and trying to figure out is the permit valid or in the right spot or whatnot. So vending without permits, we've run across that half a dozen times or so we've had to deal with that some. So make sure you get your permit stuff in. If you don't have a permit, it's $100 a day basically if we catch you doing it. We've already had a couple issues with that, so make sure you get your permits on in here. Ghost sets are less. We appreciate that. We're seeing less ghost sets. However, they are still there. We have made a couple of cases on ghost sets. Just use good judgment. If there's not anybody in them, don't put them on the beach. Don't put them on the beach 3 days in a row and us call you and say, well, they went shopping yesterday and they're going to play golf today. If they're on the beach, I expect to see somebody in them or some sign that somebody's been in them at some portion through the day. So, but like I say, we appreciate it. There's been a lot less of them so far. However, we're kind of sitting back saying, in a week and a half, it's going to go crazy. So y'all prove us wrong. That's what we want you to do. Setting up too close or in front of people. 2 cases this week where a perfect line of umbrellas, 30 umbrellas long, everything's in line, just couldn't be any prettier, except the one vendor that sets up in front of the only private set of chairs in the whole line there, close enough that the umbrellas cover the chairs behind him. Use good judgment on that. That's when you do that this morning at 7 o'clock, then you setting up too close to the water's edge because the line's where it's supposed to be. If you're in front of them, it's just all that does is throws a red flag, and then every time we see your umbrellas, we looking to see what you're doing wrong because it makes us think that you're playing the game. And we play that challenge. We don't mind We don't mind playing the game. We'd rather not do it, but it just makes our day go by faster. It gives us somebody to chase around and try to figure out where all are they doing it. We know they're doing it here. Where else on 26 miles of beach are they doing the same thing? So, soliciting and canvassing. Take an order, go set your stuff up, leave. Don't spend 30 or 40 minutes at each neighborhood or regional access hanging around talking to people going up and down the boardwalk, or trucks parked by the road, 2 or 3 vehicles in the same parking lot at the same time. For one particular day, we got pictures of 2 vendor trucks in the same parking lot for over an hour, and neither one of them's in there. Neither one of them setting chairs up. Trucks are there, both of them sitting in their trucks. An hour later, same 2 guys still sitting in trucks in different parts of the parking lot with their signs on their truck at 6:40 and 7:43 or something was the timeline. So in the morning, early in the morning, vehicles parked in parking lots. Just don't, like I say, don't take advantage of the system. Don't abuse the system, because it just puts you on the radar, and we don't want you to be there. So I think Junior, Dave, either one of y'all think of anything that you've seen that we hadn't talked about?
The only one thing is, the guys that does the nighttime meeting on the bonfires and stuff like that, if you're cooking topside or fixing stuff to bring out topside, but you can't do it on the beach, be courteous, don't block the 2 parking spots right next to the handicap. If you're gonna do that, be a little courteous, get off to the side and let the folks that need that access to be up front, get to the beach, let them have it.
And don't park your truck and trailer in these 5 parking spots, and put your tent and 3 cookers in these 5 parking spots right between on each side of the access, where people's having to walk between your trailer and your cookers to get in, off and on the beach. So, hey, most of this is pure old common sense. Just use good judgment. I mean, if you go somewhere on vacation, would you want to have to walk through all this mess? Would you want to have to deal with it? So just treat the people like you want to be treated when you go somewhere. That's all we ask. I can't think of anything else just jumps out and gets me. So, ready for questions?
If suppose someone were to get they get a warning first.
Okay.
And then if they get a ticket, can they go, tell me how, when you get a ticket now, I know that we discussed this before, but I don't remember what you told me. Where do they go to pay their ticket, or where do they go to pick up the ticket, or at one point it was the officer, and it was like midnight, depending on when they worked, but we fixed that, I hope.
If in a leave no trace, if we pick your stuff up off the beach at whatever time of the night we're out there and pick it up, then you have to deal with that officer. Whatever officer gets your stuff, he has to be the one to give it back and write you a warning or your ticket or whatever it is you're getting, because he observed a violation, and I can't write a citation on somebody else's case. He has to do it. So if you want your chairs back tomorrow, then he's on a night shift tomorrow. Then when he comes out, you just have to get up with whatever officer writes a ticket, get up with him. He'll tell you that I'm back on at 3 o'clock tomorrow to 3 to 11 or whatever he's working. Or when he comes back around on days, we'll get back up with him when he comes back on day shift. But the violation has to be dealt with the officer that wrote you the ticket.
There's no way around that. There's no way we could leave the ticket at the space, that office.
We have to have an individual to write the ticket. So
So by law,
Florida Statute 162 says we have to write, the officer has to write Jim Bagby the ticket, just for example. So I have to have him, his driver's license, his information to complete the citation. So it don't have to be, Brian works for Jim's beach chair company. Brian left the chairs out. I don't have to write Brian the ticket. We have to write the company the ticket. So it don't matter to us who comes and gets the citation, as long as they represent that company.
so how can they find out the officer's schedule?
We have it. Stacy's got it posted. Haley's got it posted. The Visitor Center's gets our schedule. Jim's got a copy. Brian's got a copy. Yep. The easiest thing is when we pick up a set of stuff off the beach, we call them and say, hey, we're fixing to pick your stuff up. You want to come get it or not? Well, sometimes at 11 or 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, they don't always answer. We understand that, because I like to sleep too. but we'll always leave them a message. So just call that number back and say, hey, you got a set of my stuff, when you gonna be back at work? We can do it that way, or like I say, our schedule's in all our offices.
And if you don't have mine and Haley's phone number, it's 850-267-4578.
And the rest of the question was, what do you do with the ticket?
Okay, if we write you a warning citation is just that. It stays in our files, in our computer, we log it, so the next one of us that runs across you again, we run you in the computer, it pops up that says, yeah, Dave wrote him a warning on May the 1st, so then when I issue you a citation on today, the 14th, then you have 10 days to either contest the citation in writing or pay the citation. On the back of your citations, the address and the phone numbers to the clerk of court's office, which is where our tickets go. If we write you a ticket today, almost 100% of the time we turn our citations in before we get off shift. There's a drop box. If there's nobody, if it's an evening shift guy or a midnight shift guy, we drop them in the drop box. So tomorrow, the clerk of court's got the citation. So almost always at the end of shift, we turn the tickets in. So on the back of your copy, it tells you you have 10 days to either pay it or contest it, and an address and phone number with any questions. So a little further on that, if you contest a citation in writing, like it's on the back of the citation, then the clerk of court's office will give you a court date, and then they'll subpoena you to court and us to court, and then we go make our cases. And we'll make a case, you make a case, and then the judge will make a decision. So there's a process to go through. Do you have a question?
I had a question on the bonfire.
Okay.
South Walton Fire District does not regulate how many permits for a location that they issue every evening.
Right.
So at the Van Ness Butler access, for example, we've had a problem in the past where we have 3 or 4 people down there doing bonfires at that little access. With the way y'all have it where the vendors can only access one part of the beach, are y'all gonna get with South Walton Fire District on limiting how many permits for bonfires are gonna be done at these smaller accesses? Because the problem is, once we get these people on the books and we start doing the bonfires, the fire district does not refund the money for the permit.
Right.
So what are we supposed to do when we get there and there's already 2 beach vendors down there setting up a bonfire on that vendor part of the beach, and the only part that's open is that part that y'all say that's open to the general public? What are we supposed to do at that point? Because the permit's not refundable.
Right.
And they're already gonna be sitting there ready to have their bonfire.
Yeah.
So what do we do at that point?
It's a good point. We'll have a discussion with South Walton Fire District and with county commissioners as do we want to limit the number of bonfires we can have at regional beach access.
Well, it just needs to be per how much footage of beaches down there to do it.
I agree. It's a good idea. I mean, that's another reason why they have special event permits for weddings, so you don't have, more than weddings that can be accommodated at a certain access.
Right.
So, good point. We'll discuss that, and then there'll be some sort of direction given by the BCC to us on what to do.
I say, the special event permit, do you still have to get a vending section, or do they have to do a push about if you have a special event?
Special event permits,
Supersedes.
sometimes they're vendors, sometimes they're not. A lot of times they're wedding people.
Well, I work with,
Yeah.
I work with a company that does them, I supply the chairs for them, so I want to know.
Special event permit, you'll have to list what you're gonna do and how you're gonna do it and all that, and,
Yeah, a special events permit is just that. It's for special events, and it supersedes the ordinance. It allows you to have music on the beach and to have lights on the beach and that kind of stuff. So once the special events permit is approved and all of your stipulations is in it, then it allows you to deviate from the ordinance. However, if you've got a special events permit and we check you on the beach and you've got a bonfire check and music check, but you don't have lights and all that kind of stuff on your permit that's approved, then it puts you in violation of your special events permit. So just make sure whatever you're going to do is on your special events permit.
Because I just do the chairs for them, so I want to make sure that.
Right.
They have it, that's, so you don't come down and I get in trouble because I deliver them and they said they have a permit for it, so I just need to make sure that they have a permit for all that stuff.
I got you.
That's all I want to make sure. someone else screw up doesn't get you in trouble.
I'm with you. Anything else?
I did
Jim?
want to say one thing. You know, and Jeff went through the training, some things that we've noticed this spring. But I want to thank you that this spring was a lot more calm than last spring.
Oh, yeah.
And people can say, well, it's because the county commissioners were, you know, have the ordinance in front of them for revision, but I don't believe that. I think everybody understands that it's in all our best interests, okay, to use our common sense, to provide good customer service, to get those people back. And so I just want to thank you for what you did this spring. You did a great job. And we're never perfect. None of us is ever perfect, but much improved over the last spring. And so we really appreciate it from the TDC. Thanks.
Before we get out of here, any more questions? Bobby, you guys have been going, 14 days now. Anything you want to say for Turtle Watch?
It's cranked up. We started, first two nests were laid yesterday, first one in Miramar, second one this morning down in Watertown.
Okay.
So, season's up and running. If I could say one thing.
Come up here, Bobby, if you don't mind, so I can hear you.
Good morning. I know plenty of you. For those of you that I haven't met, I'm the area coordinator from both the Mid-East and Midwest areas for South Walton Turtle Watch. One thing I would like to point out just real quick, we were talking about special events. If you're going to have lighting on the beach, I believe there's an additional permit from the state that's required. Bonfires, we talked at the pre-wash and the vendors meeting back earlier in the spring about bonfires being a privilege. We know that they're a point source of light. They are, in fact, banned in the lighting ordinance, as well as tiki torches. Nobody wants to stop them. What I would like to ask on a voluntary basis for you to start them as early or as close to sunset as you can, and basically an hour after sunset, have them burned down to the point that they're no longer considered a point source of light. We know statistically that 1 out of all 3 nesting sea turtles make their first nesting attempt between full-on dark and 11 p.m., which is, frankly, when most folks want to be out and having a bonfire. But if we can have those fires burned down to the point that an hour or so after dark, that they're no longer a point source of light. And I would point out also that tiki torches are, in fact, not allowed. They're actually, in addition, as a point source of light, they're also covered in the ordinance under fossil fuel burning. Only a single gas jet is basically allowed as far as an open flame. So I'd ask that you do your part. We're looking at, our season started early. First nest was laid last year on the 27th of May. The year prior to that was on the 11th of May. So we had nearly 100 sea turtle nests that year in the county that when the season started as early as we have this year. Not experienced any early setups. We've not experienced any vendor violations in these first 2 weeks, and I want to thank all of you. I hope the texting program is working for everyone. We're doing our level best to clear the beaches as early as we can. We're starting at 5:30 now. In another week or so, we'll be out there at 25 after, and another 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be on the beach at 5:15 at first light. So we'll clear them, and hopefully you guys can get out and get set up. And wish each and every one of you an awesome and successful season. Thank you.
Thank you again for your participation in our meeting today. We'll look forward to a successful vending season this year. If you got any questions or comments prior to the May 22nd enforcement date, our contact information is on the handout. Please call us. And I highly encourage you, for the people that have not got 2015 permits, to get the applications submitted so we can get them processed and get them back and not be in a crunch time come May 22nd. Appreciate it.